The chamber was quiet. Too quiet for a war council. No one spoke as Threx, once supreme field commander of the 7th Jar Dominion Legion, stood before them, cloaked not in military pride, but in shame. His armor was dull, his left mandible twitched from nerve damage. His eyes, once bright with the fire of conquest, held only one thing now: fear. He limped forward to the center platform, his mechanical leg clicking against the stone floor. "I am not here for honor," he said. "I am not here to reclaim rank. I am here because you are all about to make the worst mistake in Jar history." The council chamber, a towering dome of obsidian and blue crystal, flickered with digital light from the mines connected to the central core. 12 counselors sat in a semicircle, old and prideful, soaked in military medals and political arrogance. Most looked at Threx with thinly veiled disgust. One even chuckled. Counselor Zura's voice dripped with mockery. "Tell us again, Commander, about these so-called humans?" "They're not just soldiers," Threx growled. "They are war incarnate. They don't fight to win. They fight because they don't know how to stop." Counselor Vorak rolled his 4 eyes. "You lost. Admit it. You were defeated by a species of primitives barely off their rock." "I didn't lose a battle," Threx snapped. "I lost an army." That made them stir. His voice, raw and shaking, still carried that old command. 1 or 2 counselors leaned forward, unsure now. "They dropped into the shadow of our outpost on Dross 9 like they didn't care about terrain. Their leader didn't even wear a helmet. He smiled as we charged." "A bluff," one counselor said. "Cowards wear smiles when they fear death." "No," Threx hissed. "He smiled because he wanted to die fighting." A silence followed. Threx closed his eyes. He could still see the way the humans moved, ragged, loud, unrefined. They didn't march like the Jar. They stormed like storms crash shorelines, brutal, uncoordinated chaos that somehow always worked. Every one of them fought like they were the last man on the field. Everyone was ready to die if it meant taking someone down with them. "They aren't bound by honor," Threx whispered. "They adapt, cheat, break their own rules to break yours. You send thousands, they send 1, and he burns your entire battalion. You kill his squad, he calls down fire on himself just to take you with him." Zura laughed again. "Old soldiers' tales. You think these humans are unstoppable?" "I watched a human crawl, with his intestines dragging behind him, just to detonate an explosive at our shield gate." Another counselor blinked. "Surely you're exaggerating. I shot him 3 times. He kept crawling." Some of the counselors shifted now, not laughing anymore. "You think I'm mad. I saw your faces when I limped in here. You whisper that I'm broken, that I cracked in retreat. But let me be clear." Threx leaned forward, his voice cold as the moons of Vorak. "You will break too, because they are coming. And you won't see them as warriors until they're standing on your corpse." The lights dimmed in the room as the hologram of the Jar Empire flickered to show Sector 14. Earth's system. The scouting fleet had already been dispatched. 8 ships, full battalions. The council had approved it yesterday. Threx stared at the glowing icon labeled Earth, that cursed little blue world. Small, insignificant, but hiding something ancient in its people's blood. "I've seen the future," Threx said, "and it's wearing human skin." He turned, cloak dragging behind him, and walked away on his prosthetic leg. He didn't need applause. He didn't need agreement. He had done his part. The rest was now just time. As he exited the chamber, a junior council aide looked up at him with pity. "You really believe they're that dangerous?" Threx didn't stop walking. Not dangerous. He paused at the edge of the hall, eyes distant. Unstoppable. They came out of warp above Earth with precision. 8 Jar warships, each the size of a small moon, hung like gods over the blue planet. Their hulls gleamed black and red, marked by glowing runes of war. Their engines hummed with ancient power, and their weapons were charged before Earth's satellites even registered their presence. General Kurtal stood on the bridge of the command vessel Dominance Reborn, his 4 arms behind his back, his expression stoic. He was not like Threx, the old fool broken by ghost stories. Kurtal was born in blood and steel. He had conquered 6 worlds. His scars were medals, his reputation unmatched. And now he would take Earth as a trophy. "Scans complete," reported a bridge officer. "Minimal orbital defenses. Their fleets are primitive, sublight speed, mostly chemical propulsion. No threat." Kurtal sneered. "Just like I said, backward mongrels crawling in the dirt." Another officer added, "We've disabled their communications grid. The planet is blind." "Begin the descent," Kurtal ordered. "Phase 1, decimation." The Jar ships split formation, descending into Earth's atmosphere like meteors. Cities below watched the skies turn black as thunderclouds formed in their wake. Panic spread fast. Across Earth, news agencies scrambled to understand what was happening. Most thought it was a military test. Others thought it was the end. They were both wrong. The first target was a large military base in Eastern Europe, a key NATO installation. The Jar dropped with surgical strikes, disintegrating everything within a mile radius. Humans below never had a chance. Concrete, steel, flesh, it all vaporized in the blinding light. The second strike hit a naval fleet in the Pacific. Ships sunk without ever launching a missile. Aircraft turned to dust on the runway. The Jar didn't speak. They didn't send messages or demand surrender. They simply acted like executioners who didn't need permission, and they believed it would be over in days. But Earth wasn't a unified empire. It wasn't a monolithic power like the Jar Dominion. It was chaotic, divided, volatile. And that was exactly why it was dangerous. The retaliation came 48 hours later. Kurtal was in orbit, reviewing the next wave of invasion targets when his ship jolted. Hard. Alarms screamed. The command deck dimmed. "What was that?" he snapped. "Unknown projectile impact," the officer stammered. "Came from surface, no heat signature, no lock-on. It bypassed our shields." Kurtal's eyes narrowed. "How?" "Don't know, but it tore through subdeck 6. Breach sealed, but 28 crew dead." Before Kurtal could respond, the second hit came, this time directly to the left propulsion cluster. The ship buckled, systems went red, gravity flickered. Then, silence. They had never seen that kind of weapon before. It wasn't sleek or advanced or alien. It was ugly, brutal, covered in scrap metal and spray-painted skulls. And it worked. On the surface, human special forces had mobilized with terrifying speed. Across the globe, dozens of militaries, once suspicious of each other, shared data through secret encrypted channels. Nuclear powers held back, not out of mercy, but calculation. They didn't need nukes. They needed hunters. And Earth had plenty. From the Siberian tundra to the ruins of Detroit, from old war veterans to underground militias, Earth's warriors emerged like shadows, unregulated, unpredictable, unafraid. In the scorched city of Lion, a Jar squad encountered their first real resistance. They were sweeping a residential zone when a pile of corpses exploded, literally. Hidden underneath was a human with 2 broken legs, laughing as he pulled the pin on a grenade stuffed with shrapnel and old nails. It killed 2 Jar soldiers instantly. The third lost both arms. They never trained for this. Jar battle doctrine was built on control, shock and awe, dominate the field with overwhelming power. But Earth didn't play by those rules. A human soldier in camouflage charged a patrol with no weapon, just a rusted steel pipe and blood in his teeth. He screamed like an animal. When they shot him, he dropped, only for two more to leap out from a sewer grate and tear into them. Kurtal watched the footage and felt something alien in his chest. Not confusion, not anger, but unease. He remembered what Threx had said. They don't fight to win, they fight because they don't know how to stop. And now Kurtal saw the truth. These weren't warriors. They were survivors. Humanity didn't evolve through peace and order. It crawled through war after war, feeding on its own blood. Genocides, crusades, civil wars, trench warfare, cyber wars. Humans didn't need a reason to fight. They fought because it was written into their DNA. Jar warriors fought for conquest. Humans fought like they had nothing to lose, and that made them terrifying. In a ruined city block of New York, a Jar scout captain named Vental was pinned inside a collapsed building. His unit had been ambushed, not by tanks or airstrikes, by children. 15-year-olds with homemade explosives and machetes. He had killed 3 before the rest overwhelmed him, hacking at his legs, screaming curses he didn't even understand. He'd crawled into the rubble, losing blood, dragging his broken plasma rifle behind him. Now, hours later, he waited to die. Except they didn't finish him. They left him alive. And now he understood why. Because fear spreads faster than fire. Every survivor became a witness. Every scream echoed into the next battlefield. The humans didn't want to win quickly. They wanted revenge. They wanted the Jar to feel it. Back on the Dominance Reborn, Kurtal ordered immediate escalation. Unleash the Barak cannons. Flatten their cities. No mercy, no quarter. But the officers hesitated. Sir, our secondary batteries are offline. Engineering reports sabotage. Our systems were infiltrated. Kurtal stared. By who? The officer's voice shook. We don't know. But he did. They'd brought humans aboard during a cleanup sweep. Prisoners, small ones, unarmed. The ship's AI had detected no threats. The humans were half naked, bleeding, chained. Except one of them smiled at the guard and said, "You brought the devil into your house, alien." Now they were in the vents. The ship became a tomb. Across the fleet, similar reports spread. Fires, explosions, sudden loss of control, humans appearing in places no one could explain. A child with a sharpened toothbrush stabbed a Jar commander in the neck on the Bridge of Honor ascended. An old man in a wheelchair used a hidden knife to slice a guard's throat. A woman who had lost her family to the orbital strikes tore out her own tracking chip, placed it in a dead body, and rigged herself with enough explosives to collapse an entire landing zone. Kurtal was breaking. He had crushed entire species. He had never known this kind of war. This was not conquest. This was hell. The final breaking point came when they tried to retreat. Their long-range beacons destroyed, their warp drives jammed. Earth's hackers had buried code into their own signal network. Jar arrogance had assumed their systems were unbreakable. They weren't. The ships couldn't run. And then came the message. Not from a world leader, not from a general, from a man. Rough voice, unclear accent, probably mid-40s. Not in uniform, not clean. Sounded like he was smoking. You dropped into our skies like gods, killed our people, burned our homes. Thought we'd beg, thought we'd die quiet. You forgot one thing. We're human. We've been killing each other since we could hold rocks. You picked the wrong fucking planet. Kurtal sat in silence as the transmission ended. He turned toward the main screen. Earth. Blue. Quiet. Still spinning. But he didn't see a planet anymore. He saw a graveyard waiting to be filled. And for the first time in his career, He felt like the prey. The first time Threx saw the Earth counteroffensive on the Council's holosphere, he didn't feel triumph. He felt vindicated. A bloodied truth always tastes bitter, even when it's finally heard. The screen before him showed live feed, not from the JAR's broadcast network, but a hacked transmission. Earth's networks had been hijacked by their own resistance, patched through satellites, pirate signals, even old cell towers. It wasn't polished, it wasn't propaganda, it was raw, uncut. There, flickering on the display, was a battlefield outside Johannesburg. JAR troops, elite shock squads, scrambled for cover as something moved through the smog. Fast, too fast for the eye, a blur, and then, one by one, they fell. Threx narrowed his eyes, leaning closer. A human? No, humans. 4 of them. Urban camo, scavenged armor, black face paint smeared crudely across their skin. One had a piece of a JAR exosuit strapped to his chest like a trophy. They didn't carry plasma rifles, just crude, modified human tech. Rifles that looked like they'd been held together with duct tape and anger. But they moved like wolves. They didn't shout. They didn't talk. They simply killed. And when it was done, they disappeared back into the smoke. "Play it again," Threx whispered. The footage looped. He watched the same scene over and over. The council chamber behind him buzzed with chaos, but Threx blocked it out. "Counselor," one aide stammered behind him, "the humans have disabled 37% of our long-range comms. We can't get in contact with the fleets outside Sector 14. We think they've—" "I told you," Threx growled, without turning. "You didn't listen. Now they're teaching you why you should have." He stood, slower than he used to. His leg clicked against the floor, and the pain in his side flared up like fire licking his ribs. Let it burn. The council had ignored him long enough. Now they needed him. And if they didn't, then they'd burn with the rest. Kurtal stared into the fire. His command ship, Dominance Reborn, was crippled, floating like a carcass above Earth, bleeding energy. Smoke choked the halls. Fires burned in sections long since lost to human saboteurs. He sat in a blackened chamber once used for planning planetary takeovers. Now, it smelled like death and melted alloy. "General," one of his last surviving officers wheezed through a shattered breathing mask. "Escape pods are gone. Evac route is compromised." "Compromised?" Kurtal muttered. He almost laughed. It wasn't compromised. It was gone. They were trapped. "We need to hold," the officer said. "Reinforcements." "There are no reinforcements," Kurtal snapped. "The other fleets are not coming. They think we're still in control." The officer slumped against the wall. He had 3 fingers missing from a field tourniquet. His eyes were empty. "We underestimated them." "No," Kurtal said coldly. "I underestimated them." He stood slowly, the weight of failure heavy in every step. Around him the bridge was filled with wounded soldiers, dying engineers, flickering terminals. He was standing in a grave, and it was one he dug. On the ground, the humans had become something else. They weren't just fighting, they were learning. The initial battles were desperate, improvised, bloody. But now Earth's survivors were organizing, not through governments, but through soldiers, disconnected from politics, from hesitation, from law. All they had was instinct and vengeance. Major Rickard Holt had been a grunt his whole life, fought in Afghanistan, saw action in Syria, killed more men than he could count. But nothing prepared him for what the JAR brought. And yet, he adapted. He now led a unit of 43 irregulars. No 2 uniforms matched. Some wore old police gear. Others had scavenged body armor from dead JAR. One kid barely out of high school had a chest plate made of welded license plates. But they moved like ghosts. They hit supply lines, ambushed recovery crews, used the Jar's own blood sensors to trick their AI systems. They even hacked a Jar walker, those towering six-legged war machines, and turned it into a walking bomb, walked it right into a Jar base outside Mexico City, and detonated it, killed 200 of them. Rickard had lost 9 men. He considered it a win. And every time he thought about how far they'd come, he whispered one name under his breath. Threx. He'd seen the warning. The pirate recording from the council chamber, an alien trying to stop the war, trying to warn them, and Rickard had listened. Because war doesn't care about species. War only respects survivors. Back on the Jar homeworld, the council finally admitted what they had known deep down. They were losing. Not just a battle, not just a campaign. The war. Because they hadn't just attacked Earth. They'd awakened Earth. Threx stood at the center of the new war council, eyes locked on the sector map. Every day, more red dots, Jar losses, flickered across the screen. The humans weren't retreating. They were pushing outward. They were boarding ships. Hijacking communications, turning prisoners into double agents. There were even reports of human units reaching outer colonies and sowing chaos before slipping into space again. And the worst part? They had no central command, no home base, no clear hierarchy. They were scattered. And yet, they moved like one. "Counselor," one analyst said nervously, "we've intercepted a human data burst. They're calling it Operation Scourge." "What's the objective?" Threx asked. The analyst paled. "To kill every Jar who set foot on Earth. No prisoners, no mercy." A pause. Then Threx said, "Good." Kurtal was on the surface now. He'd abandoned the Dominance Reborn after detonating its core to keep it from being captured. He had barely survived the escape drop, crashing into what was once New Jersey, now a smoldering battlefield of ruined buildings and ash. He had 30 soldiers left. Once, they were elite. Now, they were hunted. They moved through ruins in silence. No radio, no scanners. Every sound could trigger a human ambush. They saw a child once, sitting alone in a hollowed-out car. Kurtal stopped. "Leave it," he said. "It's bait." His officer frowned. "It's just a—" The child exploded, literally, strapped with explosives, eyes open, dead for hours. They'd rigged the corpse. 3 Jar died in the blast. Kurtal didn't flinch. This was Earth now. Meanwhile, Rickard's unit received word. Jar General Kurtal, the one who started this war, was somewhere in Sector 8. Alive. Rickard didn't need orders. He didn't call command. He just looked around at the men and women beside him. "We end it." They didn't cheer, didn't nod. They just loaded their gear. Night fell on the ruins. Cold wind swept through broken windows. Kurtal crouched in the remains of an office building, his body armor scorched, breathing labored. He didn't sleep. He couldn't, because they were coming. And he knew it. He'd seen what happened to the last squad who tried to hold a building. They were taken out one by one, dragged into the dark. No screams, no shots, just vanished. These humans didn't fight like soldiers anymore. They hunted like predators. And now he was prey. He looked at the stars through the shattered ceiling. He remembered the first day he saw Earth. How small it looked. How insignificant. Now all he could think was, we should have left them alone. Rickard's unit approached silently. Night vision goggles off. Movement synced through hand signals. No chatter. They moved like whispers through debris, past rusted cars, through waterlogged subway tunnels. They didn't surround the building. They didn't wait. They just struck. A flashbang first, homemade, loud as hell. Then fire, screams, smoke. Jar soldiers opened fire blindly, their plasma bolts lighting up the room. Rickard kicked open a side door and shot one straight in the throat. Another leapt at him, claws out. He ducked, slammed a knife into its gut, twisted. The others fought like demons, not trained, not precise, but unbreakable. Kurtal tried to flee, stumbled through the rear of the building, dragging his weapon, bleeding from 2 wounds. He didn't make it far. Rickard tackled him through a broken wall, slamming him down into the dirt. They wrestled, alien strength against human fury. Kurtal was stronger. Rickard was angrier. He drove his knee into the alien's side, grabbed a piece of rebar, and smashed it down. Once, twice, again, until Kurtal stopped moving. Breathing hard, Rickard stood, his face covered in blood. Not all of it his. No words, no speeches. He just lit a flare. Red smoke spiraled into the sky. A signal. The war wasn't over. But one name was crossed, off the list. The flare's smoke still lingered in the sky when Rickard sat on a ruined stairwell, cradling a bullet-riddled helmet in his lap. It wasn't his. It belonged to Ramirez, the kid who took a plasma blast to the chest, clearing the hallway for him to reach Kurtal. Ramirez didn't scream. He just kept shooting until he fell, like a soldier. Rickard didn't say anything. Words felt hollow. Every breath he took now came at the cost of another man's death. The pile behind him kept growing, and there wasn't a single face he could forget. One of his squad sat down beside him, blood on his boots. "Is it true?" he asked quietly. "Was that really him?" Rickard nodded. "General Kurtal, confirmed. Throat slit, skull fractured. DNA match already pinged through the resistance net." The soldier nodded slowly. "So, it's over?" Rickard looked out at the burning skyline. A ship hung in the distance, what was left of the Jar's orbital command, crippled, listing, on fire. "No," he said, "it's just started." The Jar Dominion did not mourn Kurtal. They interrogated the moment, analyzed it, replayed it in simulations, and then they panicked. His death wasn't just a battlefield loss. It was symbolic. He had been the face of domination, of arrogance, of untouchable military might. To see him taken down by unarmored human scavengers with street gear and rebar? It broke something, not in logic, in morale. Across multiple colonies, Jar garrisons began digging in, fortifying instead of expanding. Some commanders requested reinforcements, others, worse, went silent altogether. Because a pattern was emerging. The humans weren't just surviving anymore. They were hunting. From the freezing tundra of old Russia to the forests of Congo, to the deserts of Australia, human kill teams, resistance cells, and lone operatives had all evolved. They weren't just ragtag units anymore. They had tactics, training, unity in chaos. They had found their rhythm. And every Jar soldier on Earth could feel it in their bones. They were losing, not in one strike, not in one battle, but everywhere. Back on the Jar homeworld, the Council faced its darkest moment in centuries. Threx sat at the edge of the circular chamber, arms folded, watching the panic behind cold eyes. They didn't interrupt him now. They didn't call him mad. Not anymore. "They killed Kurtal," one counselor whispered, voice barely audible. Another added, "He was guarded by a full complement, the best." "Didn't matter," Threx said. "They'll kill the rest, too, unless you stop this madness now." Counselor Zura. His voice, thinner than usual, turned toward Threx. "Negotiate?" Threx's mandibles clicked. "No." "Then what?" "Withdraw." Murmurs broke out. Zura's voice rose. "You want us to surrender a full sector?" "Yes," Threx said simply. "Or lose it all. The humans have learned our patterns. They understand our tech now. They've reversed our signals, hacked our AI, sabotaged our walkers. They're not fighting with desperation anymore." He paused. "They're fighting with intent." The room fell quiet again. "They know we don't take prisoners," he added. "So now they don't." Counselor Varen, the oldest among them, finally leaned forward, his voice quiet. "They're savages." "No," Threx said. "They're survivors. That's worse." In orbit, Earth's first captured Jar ship was now under human control. They called it Iron Fang. Rickard stood on its cracked bridge, wearing salvaged armor, looking out at the stars for the first time. The AI system still blinked in Jar script, but a tech team from Berlin had managed to translate enough to run basic commands. Engines, navigation, fire control. "We're not passengers anymore," the lead engineer grinned. "We're the fucking drivers." The ship stank of plasma burns and melted flesh. Bodies had been burned, vented, or simply left where they fell. There wasn't time to clean. Humanity's counterpunch was coming too fast. Rickard had one foot on a dead commander's chest. He didn't even notice anymore. "We ready to move?" he asked. "Just say the word." He didn't hesitate. Set course for Jar orbit. Time to show them what Earth remembers. On a mining colony in Jar space, a Jar officer named Velzak was finishing a call with the Dominion's fading command. "Sir, Earth's forces have broken past the orbital threshold. 3 ships breached Sector 9. One of them is ours." Velzak stared at the console. "One of ours?" "Yes, the Gorfang, now called the Iron Fang. They've taken it." "How?" "We don't know, but we intercepted audio from its new captain." A static-filled clip played through the intercom. "You invaded Earth. We're just returning the favor." Velzak didn't respond. He just looked at the map of Jar territories. They were all within reach now. And worse, the humans didn't need to conquer them. They just needed to hurt them, break morale, bleed systems, make them fear, and humans were very good at fear. Rickard's first mission off Earth was short, brutal. He led the assault team aboard the Iron Fang as they descended onto a minor Jar research outpost. It had once specialized in energy conversion. Now it was a pile of burning alloy. Rickard didn't capture anyone. He didn't interrogate. The plan was simple. Make a statement, the kind the Jar couldn't ignore. When they left, he tagged the main dome wall with a crude human glyph, a skull wrapped in barbed wire, spray-painted in red. He didn't need the council to read it. The soldiers would, and it would haunt them. Back on Earth, Threx knew what came next. "Retribution," he said quietly. The council nodded, assuming he meant Earth's fury. He didn't. He meant theirs. Jar pride wouldn't allow retreat forever. They would escalate. They had to. It was wired into their DNA, and that would be the final mistake. "They'll send their best," Threx warned. "Elite assassins, suicide squads, massive orbital strikes." Zura grunted. "Then perhaps we'll crush the humans once and for all." "No," Threx said, "because they'll survive it. And then they'll come for us. Not with fleets, not with diplomacy, with knives, with fire. One kill at a time." He turned to the screen again. "Mark my words, we started this war, but Earth will finish it." In deep space, aboard another hijacked Jar scout ship, a human commando named Lewis sat staring at a photo of his daughter. She'd been in a school the day the Jar dropped into Boston. There hadn't been anything left to bury. Now he had no home. No mission. Just one obsession. He leaned over the console, entered coordinates for the next Jar colony. "Let's see how you bastards like it when someone comes to your home." The ship jumped into warp. The balance had shifted. The Jar's war was one of tactics, superiority, overwhelming force. But Earth's war? It was personal. There were no drums of war in the Jar capital, just silence. Unspoken dread hung like smoke across the great city of Voskar. The sky was still the same dusky green. The floating citadels still pulsed with energy. The crystal towers still stretched toward the void like jagged monuments to pride. But something had changed, something deeper. The streets were emptier, the air thinner. Broadcast towers repeated only one message. Status red. Sector 4 closed. Outer colonies secure. Remain in place. They were lies. Everyone knew it, and worse, the humans knew it too. They weren't sending fleets. They weren't broadcasting ultimatums. They didn't need to. They were sending ghosts. It started with whispers. A jar colony in Sector 4 failed to check in. Then another. Then a communication drone returned, half-melted, covered in blood, dragging with it a corrupted human transmission. "This is Earth. No gods. No peace. We're what you made us." The council convened in emergency session again, now guarded by triple security and energy shields that once seemed excessive. Now they weren't enough. Threx sat in the outer ring, still without rank, but no longer ignored. They looked at him now like a prophet whose warnings had become scripture, and they were terrified of him, because he had been right. "I warned you," Threx said, his voice low and measured. "I warned you what they would become. But you weren't afraid when they fought like animals." He leaned forward, eyes burning. "You should have been afraid of the day they started fighting like us." Counselor Varen spoke through cracked lips. "They're striking deep into our territory, without fleets, without warning. How?" "They don't fight with numbers," Threx said. "They fight with hate." He activated a holopad and displayed a new report. A refinery on June 7 had been attacked 2 nights prior. Not destroyed, emptied. 72 JAR engineers were found hung from the scaffolding with the phrase "Earth remembers" carved into their armor. The attackers left no signatures. No survivors, no bodies of their own, only a single human dog tag. Threx didn't smile. "This is revenge, and they're just getting started." Rickard stared at the jar child sitting in the corner of the interrogation room. She couldn't have been older than 10 by human standards. Large eyes, slender frame, no scars, no rank. She'd been captured during an op on a minor communications outpost near the Razar Moons. The human team expected soldiers. They found her instead, clutching a cracked datapad and a stuffed animal that looked like a mutated eel. Rickard hadn't wanted to bring her in. But she had tried to stab one of the scouts with a shard of glass when they offered her food. Now she just sat there, quiet, watching. "Name?" he asked. She didn't respond. "I'm not here to hurt you," Rickard said. Still silence. He exhaled and leaned forward. "Look, this war, it started because your people thought we were weak, that you could take Earth like it was just another piece of meat in your empire." He pointed towards the monitor. "That's gone now. You're bleeding. Your people are losing. And if you think this war stops with Kortal, you're wrong." Finally she spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You burn everything." Rickard paused. She continued. "My brother worked in the signal tower. He didn't fight. He couldn't even aim a rifle." "We're not here to kill children," Rickard said. "Then why is everyone I know dead?" He didn't answer, because she wasn't wrong. Back on the Jar homeworld, a fracture had begun within the Dominion's own ranks. It started with whispers in the barracks. Younger soldiers questioned their orders. Officers started disappearing, some suicide, others just vanished. Not all Jar agreed with the war. Some believed Threx had been right from the beginning. Some saw the truth now written in burning colonies and crumbling cities, and some, very few, started to help. Threx received his first encoded message from a young comms officer on the colony of Trelvos 5. It read, "I don't want to die for pride. I want to live for truth. What do I do?" Threx stared at the message for a long time. Then he wrote back, "Survive, observe, when the time comes, sabotage." It was the first time he had given an order since Dros 9, and it felt like breathing again. Meanwhile, Earth's forces had evolved past revenge. They had become something more organized, more dangerous, the Hunters. That was what the Jar called them now. Human warbands, black ops units, and even civilian revenge squads all flew under the same symbol, the blood-red skull with one cracked eye. They didn't wear rank, they didn't follow protocol, and they didn't always listen to Earth's rebuilt governments. Because this war wasn't run by diplomats, it was run by ghosts, and one of the deadliest ghosts was a man named Harlan Vex. Nobody knew if that was his real name. Probably wasn't. But what mattered was his body count. He'd lost his entire family during the Dros 9 raids. Wife, daughter, twin sons, all gone. Now, he led a group of 8 that operated entirely off-grid. They had no loyalty to any nation, only to the kill list. Harlan had tattooed the coordinates of every Jar world onto his back and swore not to die until the last one burned. One of Harlan's raids made galactic history. The black site on Vurnos 3 was a Jar biowarfare research station hidden behind an asteroid belt, protected by orbital mines and drone fleets. No human had ever breached it. Until Harlan and his squad, using a stolen Tsar cargo vessel, crashed into the hangar bay and unleashed a virus of their own making, crafted from Earth's own weaponized bacteria, modified in the ruins of an old CDC lab. They didn't kill the guards, they infected them. Within 48 hours, the station was silent. When Jar recovery crews arrived, all they found were the words, "We're not monsters, you made us," scrawled in human blood across the main reactor. The footage leaked, and that was the final crack in the Council's armor. "We're not winning anymore," Counselor Zura said flatly. The others didn't argue. "We're not just losing territory," he continued. "We're losing the will to fight." "We are Jar," another counselor snapped. "We never surrender." "You think the humans will offer us terms?" Zura laughed bitterly. "They don't want surrender. They want vengeance. This is their religion now." He looked to Threx. "What would you do?" Threx's mandibles tightened. "I would stop lying to our people. I would evacuate outer colonies, pull forces inward, offer asylum to those who defect, and then I would prepare for judgment. And after that," Threx looked down at his prosthetic leg, "I would pray." Back on Earth, Rickard stood before a wall of names, thousands of them projected across the inside of a makeshift command bunker. Civilians, soldiers, children, old women, entire families, all lost during the invasion. He pressed his hand to the name Amelia Rickard, his sister. She'd bled out on a highway in Nevada trying to get her kids to safety. Her kids didn't make it either. He didn't cry anymore. That part of him was gone. But the fire never left. "Orders, Captain?" someone asked behind him. He looked away from the names. "Same as always," he said. "Find another Jar world, and burn it." The first explosion in the Jar capital wasn't massive. It was strategic. A fusion spike device, compact and low yield, detonated beneath the Council's southern orbital port, vaporizing 3 docking bays and grounding half the planetary defense grid in a single pulse of electromagnetic shock. It took 10 seconds to realize what had happened, another 4 for panic to set in. By the time emergency crews responded, the attackers were already gone. No bodies, no ships, no DNA traces. Only one thing was left behind. A crude Earth flag, scorched and torn, nailed to the wall of the underground service corridor. On it, written in spray paint, "You brought the war. Now we bring it home." Threx was in the archives when it happened. He heard the rumble first. A deep, sickening sound that echoed through the floors like a throat clearing before death. Moments later, emergency protocols engaged. His datapad buzzed. Red lights washed the walls. He didn't move, didn't need to. He knew this day was coming. He just didn't expect it so soon. "Sir," one of the junior aides shouted, stumbling into the chamber, his breathing labored. "The port's gone. High Command is isolating airspace. They're calling it sabotage." Threx turned slowly, his voice calm and cold. "It wasn't sabotage." The aide blinked. "Sir?" "It was justice." Inside the heart of the Jar Dominion's most secure city, a team of 4 humans walked unseen beneath the streets of Voskar. They wore stolen uniforms, disguised their body heat signatures, and carried weapons crafted from Jar alloys mixed with earth scrap. They called themselves Echo Team. Their mission? Simple. Kill a counselor. Captain Rickard wasn't with them. He was coordinating strikes off-world now, running sabotage ops on distant Jar colonies and protecting refugee zones Earth had carved into the Outer Rim. But he knew about the Voskar mission. He had personally selected the squad. Each had lost more than family. They had lost faith. Faith in diplomacy. Faith in structure. Faith in anything but the cold, ruthless task at hand. Juno, sniper, silent, never spoke more than necessary. Macklin, heavy weapons, sarcastic, used laughter to mask rage. Avery, tech specialist, ex-hacker, tracked Jar signals like blood trails. Archer, squad lead, a burned-out Marine who'd survived Ground Zero in Paris, and now they were deep in the lion's throat, hunting the head that had ordered Earth's suffering. Counselor Varen. The city above them was in chaos. After the explosion, thousands of Jar civilians swarmed toward safe zones. Emergency forces clashed with protesters. The cracks in the Empire's shell had become canyons. Threx watched it all unfold from the top of the council spire. His office overlooked the chaos. Distant fires, sirens. What once was order now looked like Earth had the day they arrived. He didn't rejoice. He only reflected. Because for all their conquests, all their arrogance, the Jar had never faced a war that wasn't clean. Now it was messy, bloody, unforgiving, and Earth was just getting started. Below, Echo Team moved like ghosts. Avery tapped into the Jar surveillance grid, using a crude translator chip fused from salvaged tech. "They're blind in Quadrant 6, she whispered. "Overriding motion sensors now." "You've got 7 minutes." Juno nodded once, already moving. They knew where Varen would be. A private elevator beneath the spire, shielded, away from the main panic routes. Exactly where a coward would run. Macklin grinned. "I hope he brought a change of robes." They reached the corridor. Archer gave the signal. Juno took point. And then they heard it. Footsteps. Not from ahead. From behind. "Contact!" Avery hissed. "Not on the patrol schedule. Someone's—" Then a voice rang out in perfect Jar dialect. "Lay down your weapons." They turned as one, rifles raised. But it wasn't a soldier. It was another Jar, younger, no rank insignia, hands raised. He looked at them like he wasn't afraid. He looked at them like he expected them. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "I'm your proof." "Proof of what?" Archer asked, keeping his rifle leveled. "That the Jar are already breaking from within." The Jar stepped forward. "My name is Valen, and I'm going to help you finish what your people started." It took 2 minutes to decide not to kill him, mostly because he gave them Varen's escape code and the retinal key for the lift. "I'm part of the Resistance," he said. "There's more of us. Pilots, engineers, comms. We've been waiting for this. For you." Juno squinted at him. "Why?" "Because I saw my brother kill a human child for fun," Valen said, "and I watched him get promoted for it." No one spoke after that. They didn't have to. Hate needed no translation. They found Varen 5 minutes later. He was exactly where Valen said he'd be, huddled inside the panic chamber at the base of the spire, guarded by 2 security bots and a single terrified aide. The bots died first. Juno's rounds pierced their sensors. They collapsed without even returning fire. The aide raised his hands, but Macklin put a round through his chest without hesitation. Varen screamed. Archer approached, rifle slung, staring at the pathetic old creature who had once called humanity a disease. "You know who we are?" Archer asked. Varen nodded, trembling. "You know why we're here?" "But please, we can negotiate. We can find terms. Earth has proven itself. The Council can—" Archer shot him in the leg. Varen screamed again, writhing. Archer crouched beside him. "You didn't come to negotiate when you dropped death on our cities." This is revenge," Varen gasped. Archer leaned in. "No, this is balance." He fired again, this time into Varen's mouth. When the body was found the next day, there was no note. Only a burned sigil scorched into the chamber wall. A red skull. One eye cracked. Threk stood in the silent council chamber the next morning. Varen's seat was empty. The others sat pale and broken. "We've lost 32 colonies," Zura said numbly. "And now one of our own has turned against us." "They won't stop," Threk said. "You can't reason with fire. You can only contain it, or be consumed." "Then what do you suggest?" Zura asked. "We give them something they never expected." Zura blinked. "Surrender?" "No," Threk said. "A face." Later that day, aboard a small jar diplomatic vessel orbiting a shattered moon, Threx stood face to face with a human for the first time in years. Rickard Holt, the man who had killed Kurtal, the man the jar called the Blood General. They stared at each other for a long time. No words. Then Threx spoke. "I am not here to apologize." "Good," Rickard said. "I didn't come here to forgive. I came to offer information, resistance cells, military weak points, coordinates. In exchange, I want 2 things. Rickard raised an eyebrow. "First, you spare defectors." "Some," Rickard said. "Not all." "Second," Threx said, "you let me help end the Dominion." Rickard studied him, then nodded once. "Welcome to the war. The Jar capital planet of Voskar was a fortress by design. Hundreds of orbital defense arrays, subterranean hangars, and energy shield grids spider-webbed the skies and crust. It had withstood solar flares, rebel uprisings, and 4 galactic incursions. But it wasn't built for a war like this, because Voskar was never supposed to face Earth. And now, Earth had arrived, with allies. Threk stood at the center of the human flagship Iron Fang, surrounded by men who still looked at him like a memory that bled. He could feel it in the air, the unspoken tension, the contained hatred. They had let him on board, but only barely. Every human soldier in that command deck had lost someone, many at the hands of his former brothers. But they listened, because Threx knew how the Dominion thought. He'd been bred by it, forged in its war furnaces, and now he would help burn it down. Rickard entered the room, armored in black combat gear, a matte red skull painted across his shoulder plate. He didn't salute, didn't even nod. He just looked at Threx with eyes that no longer remembered peace. "You better be right about this," Rickard said. Threx activated a holo map. The Jar capital bloomed into view. Defense nodes, troop placements, shield frequencies. All of it. "I'm not here to earn your trust, Captain. I'm here to give you victory." Rickard studied the display. "You said there's a weak point." "There's always a weak point," Threx said, "even in gods." The plan was insane. Hit the power core. Not the outer defenses, not the command tower. the planetary shield generator buried beneath the council chamber, guarded by 3 layers of kill drones and auto turrets. But if they took it out, Vosker would be exposed. No planetary shielding, no energy grid, just a gasping empire ripe for the killing blow. Rickard nodded once. "Tell your people to suit up. We move in 6 hours." While the Human-Jar Resistance Alliance prepared for their largest joint assault yet, elsewhere in the galaxy, another kind of war was beginning. A war with no rules, no alliances, no survivors. Harlan Vex had gone rogue. The man once praised as a ghost of vengeance had split from command weeks ago, refused extraction, refused orders, took what was left of his squad and disappeared into deep space, hunting Jar refugee convoys, not soldiers, civilians. They called themselves the Black March, and they didn't just kill, they broadcasted it. Live streams of burning colony domes, footage of frightened Jar mothers clutching hatchlings as fires raged, whole ships detonated with only a single chilling message left behind. "You don't get to run." Rickard had seen the footage. He didn't sleep after. "We need to find him," he told command. "Now." But even as he said it, he knew the truth. Harlan was already too far gone. He wasn't fighting a war anymore. He was finishing a purge. The Alliance strike force moved silently through Voskar's outer defense ring, hidden by signal disruptors and coordinates pulled from Threx's deep Dominion files. 12 Earth stealth ships, 4 Jar defector cruisers, each carrying mixed teams of human and Jar resistance fighters, most of whom had never trained together. Didn't matter. They all wanted blood. Rickard, Threx, Avery, Macklin, and Juno led the ground breach, descending into the Undercity through a maintenance shaft once used for sewage runoff. No lights, no sound, just tunnels that smelled like age and decay. Threx moved first, plasma rifle raised, armor silent. Avery checked her map, patched into the defense grid with a custom virus built from Jar tech and old Earth military malware. "We've got a window. 17 minutes before the sensor arrays cycle." Rickard nodded. "Let's make them count." They hit the first checkpoint like wolves through a fence. 3 turrets, gone in 5 seconds. 6 guards. 1 tried to scream, didn't get past the first syllable. Macklin rigged charges to the sealed inner gate. Knocking politely. The explosion cracked the ceiling. Debris rained down like dust from God's attic. They moved fast, through steam tunnels, under pressure vents, up a grav shaft. Until finally, they reached it, the shield core. It was a monstrous tower of humming crystal and energy regulators, glowing blue with stolen stars, guarded by 20 Jar elite sentries in reinforced armor. Threx didn't hesitate. He charged. The rest followed. It wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. Rickard moved like fire, controlled, furious, lethal. Every shot dropped a body. Every blade swipe found bone. Juno took the flank, popping heads through the smoke with cold precision. Macklin went down but took 3 with him, laughing even as his guts spilled out. And Threx? Threx fought like a man exercising his own guilt, burning down every piece of his past with plasma and rage. When it ended, they stood over corpses, surrounded by the scent of ozone and melted flesh. Rickard slumped against the base of the shield core. "Do it," he said. Avery stepped forward, pulling out a pulsing black cube, Earth's final gift to the Dominion. She plugged it into the core. The virus would short the entire system, drop every shield, kill the power grid, leave Vosker naked. "Let them watch their gods bleed," she whispered. The core flickered once, twice, then it died. In orbit, Earth's fleet didn't wait. They opened fire, railguns thundered, missile salvos tore into spires, Jar defense stations blinked out of existence in seconds. The capital city turned from skyline to firestorm. Council towers crumbled, civic hubs became impact craters, evac routes jammed with screaming Jar civilians. There was no mercy. Because Earth had none left to give. Threx stood outside the smoking chamber of the shield generator, staring up at the sky through a broken ceiling. He could see the smoke trails already rising, the fire falling, the death arriving. Rickard joined him, silent. "Does it feel like a victory to you?" Threx asked. Rickard didn't answer. He couldn't, because it didn't. Elsewhere, far from the capital, Harlan Vex stood aboard a Jar colony cruiser, soaked in blood, holding the severed head of a Jar elder who had once preached peace. Children sobbed in the background. His second-in-command hesitated at the doorway. "Sir, there were civilians." "The manifest. They're all Dominion," Harlan growled. "Every last one, and we don't leave the disease alive." "But Command's weak," Harlan snapped. "They've already forgotten what they did to us, but I haven't. Not ever." He dropped the head with a wet thud. "Burn the ship." Back on Voskar, hours after the shield fell, the last functioning counselor, Zura, broadcast a plea to Earth forces. "We surrender. Unconditionally. Please, stop this." The message reached Rickard aboard the Iron Fang. He stared at the screen, face blank. Then he turned to the comms officer. "Send back one word." The officer blinked. "What word?" "Sir." Rickard's voice was ice. "No." 3 days after the fall of Voskar, the skies were still black. Not from Jar defense satellites, those were long gone, but from the smoke of burning cities, cratered towers, and shattered spires that once symbolized the might of an empire. Now they were tombstones. And Earth stood victorious. But not whole, not clean. Victory didn't feel like it used to. It didn't feel like parades or cheers. It felt like blood under the nails, like nightmares that wouldn't leave, like staring at your reflection and not recognizing the man looking back. Rickard hadn't slept since the orbital strike ended. He didn't want to. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Macklin's smile fading under the rubble. He saw the little Jar girl in the interrogation room, the one who had asked why everyone she knew was dead. And now, everyone really was. He stood in the ruins of the Jar High Council chamber. It was open to the stars now, the roof torn off during the final orbital barrage. Debris littered the once pristine floor. Dead Jar lay scattered, many still clutching ceremonial blades they never got the chance to raise. Threx stood beside him. They didn't speak. What could they say? This was the end of the Dominion. Of everything Threx had been born into, and the beginning of something Rickard wasn't sure humanity deserved. The transmission came again, Threx finally said. Rickard didn't turn. "Harlan?" Threx nodded grimly. "They've hit 3 more refugee vessels, civilians. No resistance. They broadcasted the executions." Rickard clenched his jaw. He didn't even need to ask what was on the recordings. He already knew. Harlan Vex had become a warlord. Where Earth's military tried to build structure, Harlan tore it down. Where diplomats started whispering about peace, he silenced them with raids. His broadcasts went further now. Not just messages, sermons, twisted speeches about cleansing the stars, about reclaiming pain, about how mercy is the seed of future war. And people listened. Not many, but enough. Enough to turn his rogue outfit, the Black March, into a growing shadow army. One that answered to no command, not even Earth's. "We have to put him down," Rickard said. He stood in the command chamber of Iron Fang, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the red-marked sectors where Harlan had last struck. The room was quiet. No one disagreed, but no one wanted to say it out loud either. "He's one of us," Avery said. "He bled for Earth. Lost everything." "So did I," Rickard said coldly. "And I'm not out there executing civilians." A pause. "He crossed the line, and if we don't stop him, everything we did here becomes just another genocide." Threx said nothing. But inside, he agreed. Maybe Earth didn't invade Xar space for conquest, but the war had turned them into conquerors anyway. It took 5 days to find Harlan. His ship, the Barrow, had been lurking near the ruins of Sector 19, where the last surviving Xar evacuation station remained. Threx had known they'd go there eventually, and Rickard, with deep reluctance, led the mission himself. He took no fleet. Only one squad: Juno, Avery, Threx, and himself. This wasn't a battle, it was a reckoning. They breached the Barrow at 300 hours. No alarms, no defenses, just silence, eerie and thick, like walking into a graveyard with walls. Bodies hung from the corridors. Xar, human, didn't matter. All were stripped of gear. Some were still twitching. Avery almost vomited. Threx walked through it like a man stepping back into a familiar nightmare. Rickard kept his rifle raised. They found Harlan in the observation chamber. Alone, sitting in a cracked chair, staring at the endless stars. His beard was overgrown, blood matted in his hair. His eyes were clear, too clear. "I wondered when you'd come," he said without turning. Rickard leveled the rifle at him. "I should kill you where you sit." "You won't," Harlan said, "because deep down you know I'm right." "About what?" Rickard snarled. "Slaughtering civilians? Hanging kids from engine vents?" "They're Xar," Harlan said flatly. "There are no civilians. Every single one of them would have grown into a killer, just like we did." Threx stepped forward. "You sound like the Dominion." Harlan finally turned and smiled. "The difference is, we earned our hate." Rickard took a step closer. "You were a hero once." "No," Harlan said. "I was a victim. You made me a symbol. They made me a weapon. And now that I'm doing what weapons do, you flinch?" Juno's voice was soft. "You're not fighting anymore. You're murdering." Harlan stood slowly, and that was when Rickard saw it. He wanted to be killed. "Pull the trigger," Harlan whispered. "Go on, put me down. Be the hero. Prove you're still better." Rickard didn't move. His hand trembled, not out of fear, out of knowing that part of him agreed, that deep in the bone, under all the uniforms and orders and medals, there was still the man who had watched his family burn, and wanted to see the stars bleed for it. But he didn't pull the trigger. He lowered the rifle. "You don't get the easy way out," Rickard said. "You rot in the prison you built." Juno moved forward and sedated Harlan before he could resist. As he collapsed, his last words were barely audible. "They'll thank me in the end." 2 weeks later, the war officially ended. Not with a treaty, not with parades, just silence. The Xar Empire was gone, its colonies reduced to rubble or ruled by new governments, its soldiers either dead, imprisoned, or defected. Earth did not take over. It did not occupy. It simply left the ashes where they were and walked away. Some said it was mercy. Others called it exhaustion. But those who were there knew the truth. Earth didn't need to stay. It had proven its point. In a quiet field on the outskirts of the former Xar capital, Rickard stood alone, looking over the reconstruction zones where Xar and human workers now labored side by side. Threx approached from behind. "Strange, isn't it?" the alien said. Rickard nodded. "Feels wrong." "They'll build something new here," Threx said. "Will they?" "They have to." Rickard finally turned. "You think we're better now, after all this?" Threx looked at the horizon. "I think we're different. Whether that's better or worse depends on what we do next." Rickard exhaled slowly. "You ever wonder what would have happened if they'd listened to you back then?" Threx gave a faint smile. Every day. They stood in silence for a long time, and for the first time since Earth burned, Rickard felt something flicker in his chest. Not hope, but rest. Just a little. Epilogue. In the deepest vault of Earth's military archive, under a black flag clearance level known to only 4 living people, a locked case is sealed with retinal, vocal, and neural encryption. Inside it is a data crystal. Label. Subject, Harlan Vex. Status. Classified, do not release. Below it, a short note is etched into the case's lid, written by Rickard Holt. Victory is not proof of righteousness. It's only the moment where no one was left to fight back.